I guess just overall, how would you assess your team's performance?
We found a way. We found a way. It wasn't the cleanest and things like that early, but I'm really proud of their perseverance in the second half. Being down, 14-0 to come back and outscore them 27-6. I think says a lot about the resiliency of this team, and we found a way to make some stops, and still, as you know, plenty to clean up there. That allowing some of their big plays, but found a way to win a close game.
At halftime, it looked like they were on pace for 500 yards. In total, it's 375. What changed? What changed in the second half?
Well, like DK, and I said, what's your thoughts? And he goes, we just need to execute what we're calling better and stuff. And we didn't make big changes there. I mean, I think Bengali gave us a spark in some ways, but I don't think we did a very good job setting edges or keeping leverage, when both are needed, and some missed tackles again, some of those things that we struggled with. But again, we certainly cleaned that up in the third quarter, and momentum shifted our way.
How much did Bengali help in the second half? He definitely showed up, felt like, throughout the...
Yeah, without going back and watching, but he definitely gave us a spark. He was very active, and I said in the post-game radio, for a guy that knew he wasn't going to play the first half, he might have had his best week of practice. He was very focused and determined. Very similar to the week he was coming off injury. He just a different look on his face. I'm really proud of him. Really proud for what he's done. He laid it out there for us and made some big plays.
Everyone knows about the offense and what they can do, but to see the defense make the big play, getting the strip sack fumble, the touchdown, and then and goal from the one 3 straight times to get a stop. What does that say, and how much confidence does that give?
Yeah, this group, and you could see a couple passes even in one of those last drive. Where sometimes we're not playing with, we're playing soft and a little bit, get on our heels. So to make some of those plays, definitely huge confidence builders for this group. And I think Austin was one that Alexander gave up some, had some cushion, but then he makes a big break up there late for us. So again, these guys are growing and on the job training, so to speak, halfway through the season. I think this could be a big one for them to hopefully gain some confidence. But like you said, here we are calling the timeouts, and then you get the stopping where I probably should have let one of those go, right? And then we'd have about a minute to go or something. But to get that stop, and it really says a lot. And again, that just shows you got to play to score. And not saying they didn't. I think they did. But for us to make those plays was huge.
When you go into the 2-minute warning at second and goal on the 1 yard line, what did you kind of see from the defense during that break heading into that play?
Well, again, they were rallied around. They weren't defeated. They talked to me, but again, let's keep them out. All the kind of things that you expect guys to say, and we talked about making sure that we saved ourselves time if they did score. That we would give ourselves plenty of time to drive and try to kick a field goal to win it or something, or see where it takes us. So again, some big stops there.
Coach, it's been a career year for Jalen Daniels, and going into this game, UCF's defense was able to contain him a little bit on the rushing. So how were you able to adjust to their defense and get him to get those passing yards?
Yeah, he didn't rush for as much, and that's a credit for them. Most of the stuff that he did was the quarterback sneaks and stuff. I thought we had that last run. We had a missed block there. We thought we had an edge, and then we could have maybe knocked that out before we had to punt. But again, you can see his abilities and his touch, and we had some big catches. He had some big time throws. Jalen will do whatever it takes for us to win football games and to be at his best and leading this football team. And I thought he had another really nice night tonight.
Lance, you talked about making the most of red zone opportunities. Sean Williams goes in, gets 3 touchdowns, increased opportunities. What do you think of this game overall today?
Yeah, he's another guy that's been banged up, and he's a tough son of a gun. I'll tell you that. And he's midweek. He's still fighting through it. He's limited in practice quite a bit in what he's doing. And then the last one he's doing, he goes, I'll be good to go by Saturday. And he's not a guy that's looking to pace himself. He just knows he knows his body, he knows what it's going to take, but he's physical. And there's some big runs for him that weren't touchdowns that you can really see him churning his legs and moving the pile and keeping us in good down distance situations.
You guys have prepared for multiple quarterbacks, but what was the adjustment like when they actually did have to make a quarterback?
Yeah, there's, probably not as much vertical game there until they had to and stuff. Sometimes there were some things limited when they made the change. I don't think there's a distinct different game plan. I think there's throws that some guys make better than others that they may feel confident with, but it's not like all of a sudden let's open up a different call sheet for this quarterback per se.
Coach, speaking of players that have been banged up, Leipold Marjan came in as a game time decision. What happened to list him as a game time decision, and how's he doing now?
Well, he's been a game. He's had a lower body injury, injury, I guess, and was limited all week. Did some on Thursday for us. He didn't know how he was going to feel again. He came out in warm-ups. He told me he was kicking barefoot while it was raining because he didn't want to get his shoe all wet. But he told me he was good to go. But I think you could see a guy who didn't practice all week. The field goal that was, what was that, the second one? It wasn't even 41. I mean, it hit the crossbar. It was like, I think he was starting to get tired. And I asked him if he was okay, and he said he was, but the next kickoff went out of bounds, and I think he did start to tire. But he gave us a gutty performance from a kicker standpoint, and he's been very good for us. And I told team afterwards how proud I was the way he gutted it out. So hopefully we'll see what he's like for next week, and hopefully we get him a full week's worth of work because obviously we need him.
You maybe touched on this a little bit, but what can it do for the team's confidence to pull out a narrow victory, especially after how last week went?
I think obviously it's a happy bunch in there that it's really proud. I think hopefully, again, after not getting a stop last week and doing those things, any of those type of things are confidence builders. I think offensively gives us confidence because we're down at half the way it was, and to be able to come out the second half and, especially when they got the ball. I was thinking of Michael and his middle eight questions, right at the end of the first half, and how that was all going to play out. So it was big for us that way, and I think this team, and I told them the biggest thing is it's great to have confidence, but you got to come back to work on Monday hungry for a big challenge.
You guys are down 14-0. What'd you see on the sideline?
Again, disappointment. But again, things that were correctable, and I think that's the biggest thing that we saw in the second half is they got corrected. We tackled better, I believe. We did a better job with leverage. I think we corralled them a lot better. Offensively, we got into a rhythm, and we were able to create some things. So all those things, again, I didn't feel, oh no, here we go, this is going to be ugly, but it wasn't, everybody smiling and laughing either. It was concerning, of course, but I'm really proud that this group didn't flinch and kept battling.
I'm curious, who were the players that you hear their voices or you notice are taking on some of that accountability and leadership?
Again, Bryce Foster, Jalen Daniels, there's a lot of guys in there. Justice Finkley, the guys are some of the but there were other guys in there. Taylor Davis until he went out. There's other guys that were DJ Withers. There were a lot of guys in there. Levi Wentz, I could remember hearing him. There's a lot of guys that were a lot more encouraging and not frustrated and those things. They knew it was going to be a battle. And the one thing we say, this is the way this conference is, that these games are going to be close all the time, so you better be used to being in close games.
Yeah, so in what ways do you think the rain affected the game?
I don't know if it really did per se. It kind of went through. I thought our guys battled it. We've had maybe one day of some light rain that we've practiced in. Every other one it's been lightning where we've had to come in. I didn't see, the ball wasn't on the ground a lot. I thought snaps and everything. I didn't feel guys were dropping balls. I thought the field was in excellent condition. Hats off to the facilities people here because I didn't see a bunch of guys slipping all over the place either. So.
Anything else, Coach?
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Coach.
Was it the wardrobe change that